All right, Dillan Holliday, how you doing, bud?
Living the dream, friend. How are you?
I guess this is the part where we act like we haven't spent the last hour together driving into town.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to have you here, man. And as people might recognize, we are doing our podcast in a new studio today. So let's see how this goes. First question I have for you. I saw Waylon's page the other day. The hell does very demure, very mindful mean?
Oh, man. That's one of the many trends on TikTok. So, demure, it's like classy, very, very, very classy, very subtle. Waylon's a weird fit for that, though.
Right. That's why I want to know what the hell's going on.
I saw that same post and I thought, man, what a weird fit for that. But I guess that's how it makes sense in the social media world, is the weirder the fit, the better it works.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should start by introducing you as a country music historian.
You could say that.
Among many things. And I've been blessed to get to meet you a couple of times before now. So, and I've just been always amazed by your knowledge of country and your passion for it. How did you fall in love with country music and becoming this historian?
Oh, man. Most people, they tell you the story. They say, oh, I grew up and my grandpa or my grandma or my, whoever listened to country music. That wasn't really the case for me. I had an older parent. My father was older, but he wasn't a country music fan. And my mother's country music was like the Judds. But from a young age, I had heard sound bites from people like Johnny Cash, and I liked it a lot. So I thankfully grew up on the internet generation. You look up Johnny Cash, and then it'll show you, oh man, recommended artist, Waylon Jennings, and then you learn about the Highwaymen,
right.
And, so on and so forth. And that's pretty much how it happened. There's no crazy story for me.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you fell in love with it through the music.
Yeah, exactly. The storytelling is what I think really had its claws into me. I love the storytelling aspect.
Who do you think are like the people right now that are carrying on traditional great country music?
Oh, man, there's a lot of great folks. I think Colby Acuff is doing a great job. Just came out with the American Sun album, and it's to explain that album to maybe the folks who are more traditional in style. It's sort of like a John Prine type cut, which is not what he's used to cutting, but it's amazing. Coulter Wall, of course, a name people are always going to mention because he has that, prairie style that Eddie Arnold made famous, with that booming voice. A young guy that I listen to a lot, and y'all can find on TikTok, and I'm sure the other medias, is Joe DeVito. Man, that guy has some songs that'll drive you crazy. If y'all like Jesse Wells, who's blowing up right now, you'll like Joe. He's amazing.
So those are your three go-to right now?
Pretty much, you'd have to say.
Yeah. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of country music?
Man. I've always answered that as logical as I humanly could. And for me, you have to put Jimmy Rogers. Well, then, who did Jimmy Rogers influence? And so I go down the list. So to me, the list is Jimmy Rogers, Merle Haggard, George Jones, and Mel Street. And a lot of people are saying, well, who's Mel Street? Mel Street's a guy that George Jones widely regarded as being one of the greatest country musicians ever. When Mel Street passed away, George Jones got sober for a short time. He would actually go to the funeral and sing Amazing Grace. That's how high in regard George, held Mel Street.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I don't even know who Mel Street is.
Mel Street had a pretty short career. He conquered the 10-year town in 4. And he could do anything. He did everything from working on radio to mechanic work, janitorial work. I believe I've heard, and I haven't exactly confirmed it, so I could be off, but I've heard that Mel's the first person that cut $1 million recording deal. Now, I don't know how accurate that is. I could be off, but I have heard that.
Wow. Now, I think Jimmy is easy, or the Carter family, if you can kind of lump them into one. But Merle has to be on pretty much everyone's.
Yeah. It's funny. We've had a lot of discussions, right? Being in this space where how do you decide who the best is? And for me, I think it's the best has to be able to do it all. They have to be able to be a great showman. They have to be able to write. They have to be able to, pick and sing. They have to have it all. And Merle was the ultimate triple threat.
Sounds like Travis Tritt.
Yeah, which Travis, those guys, Waylon Jennings was like a huge influence of him, and Waylon Jennings is another guy you could describe as being that triple threat.
Yeah. So you don't put Waylon on Mount Rushmore?
I don't put Waylon on the Mount Rushmore. I understand why a lot of folks do. I love Waylon. Nothing against Waylon. To me, the Mount Rushmore is who were the people that inspired others, right? Mm-hmm. And I know, like, people say, well, that's kind of weird. Like, you put Mel Street on the list, and it's like, Mel Street is the reason that George Jones wanted to be better. And people like George Strait have covered Mel Street songs. People might not realize that. The song I Met a Friend of Yours Today was a Mel Street song I know George Strait had a cut of.
Wow.
So just because his name isn't known widely, there's a lot of folks whose names aren't known widely that I could tell you about. And I could tell you songs that they had, and you'd go, wow, man, I had no idea.
Right.
And that's just how country music is. It's like every 10 years we sort of recycle our whole knowledge, and it just becomes the new face. And that's the interesting thing about country.
I think I'd put Waylon, Dolly, George Jones, and Haggard on there.
Yeah. Everybody's going to be upset. None of us put a Hank. None of us put Hank Sr., Hank Jr.
Oh, my God, yes.
Neither of us put a Hank. And that's something I talk about a lot, too.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
I talk about that a lot, though, and I'll tell you why. I love everything that Hank Sr. did, right? To me, if you had a fifth slot, it would be either him or Roy Acuff, because it has to be. But to me, when you're looking at just, once again, having all that ability, George and Haggard were from the same era, but man, they did it better than anybody. And Hank, he did it great. He did it better than anyone. He was innovative. But there again, that short career, it's the same reason why I love Keith Whitley. I couldn't put Keith Whitley on my list.
Nah, too current.
Yeah. Well, not even for me, probably, but not even too current. It's that career just didn't have. George Jones had a career for 60 years.
Right.
So you can't compare a guy who had a career for 10 years to a guy who had a career for 70. It's just not.
That's true. But I do think 89 would be too late. 88, 87 would be too late to start putting people on the Mount Rushmore.
And that's where people will argue, But yeah, no, I totally understand.
But you already have me kicking myself because Hank does belong on there.
Yeah. It's hard, man. And that's why when people ask those questions about, like, what's your top, you're always going to omit somebody. And sometimes it's not on purpose.
But I'll tell you something about Waylon for me. I feel like Waylon and Cash are like country music's version of Elvis, where the legacy is continuing to grow even today.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about all these guys having so many demos that were never put out. Waylon has stuff coming out next year. Johnny Cash had stuff that came out over the summer. Like, those demos are a part of that story, a part of that history, and those are gaps in their timeline. And the fact that we are at a point where people are finally understanding the importance of those tapes, man, that's huge. And I know, like, there were guys like Merle Haggard who were said to have had a lot of demos who, from what I understand, his sort of thought process was, if I liked it enough, it became a recording. That, like, if it was only a demo, it was because I wanted it to be only a demo. That if I liked it enough, it would have been recorded. And so I understand some folks look at it that way too and want their best foot forward,
I thought that Dylan Weldon was going to go viral when he tried to rickroll the internet through the Waylon video.
Yeah.
And then he got replaced by Hawk Tuah.
Yeah, immediately.
Wasn't that the same weekend?
It was pretty close. The whole thing is, like, that Waylon announcement, the announcement that there were demos that Waylon had and Shooter and the family were going to be working on, that announcement took everybody by storm. I don't think there was any, like, insider information where people were like, oh, man, this is happening. So when it happened, Weldon, of course, being such a funny person,
Hilarious.
he goes, I'm gonna go on there because people look at him as someone who probably does have insider information. He says, I have a clip here of one of the unreleased demos, and he rickrolled the internet only 20 years too late.
I didn't even know what Rickroll was. I just knew that video always comes on, and then I learned.
Yeah.
I'm so late to understanding trends in social media. Like, I didn't know about this very demure.
Yeah.
Demure?
Very demure.
Demure. Yeah. Must be a French word. And I didn't. I was like, what the hell? Because he texted me. He was like, I'm about to Rickroll the internet. And I'm like, what the hell does Rickroll mean? But I know the song.
Yeah.
I just don't know the social media trends crack me up. Like viral videos, I don't understand what makes one different from another. Nikki was on the podcast and showed me one that was like millions of views, and it was a girl cooking strawberries, or not cooking, sorry, doing something with chocolate and strawberries.
I must have missed that one.
But I mean, you are a personality on social media, so like, how do you even think about like, will this be a viral video, or do you just consistently go through it?
No, I think I know my place pretty well. I know my place well enough to understand that, like, if something that I do goes viral, it probably went viral for the wrong reasons, because the content that I make is mainly meant to be more educational. So if something that I do goes like crazy viral, it's probably crazy viral for the wrong reasons. But like, being in that space, no, you can't avoid, like, everybody for the last month and a half has been sneaking in references to Hawk Tuah, into every video that they do. And now it's this, very demure, very classy. I get it. I understand that's like the thing. But at some point, we kill the joke, a little early, a little premature.
It is pretty funny, though.
Yeah.
The Hawk Tuah girl cracks me up. Because she's actually pretty funny when you listen to her.
And that's an example of a person who like, we made the right person famous for something so stupid, because she's given back to the community. She's been working in like dog shelters and feeding, hungry animals and doing just the right things. And I'm glad to see the right people living their dreams, like Zach Bryan had her out on his show. Like, it's always good to see the right people being able to live their dreams.
Yeah. But Zach's girlfriend got to interview her for a podcast, so.
Yeah.
Could be a little quid pro quo.
It could be a little quid pro quo. But you know what? If you're in that situation where the world wants to see who you are, man, that's something. That's sort of just the way it goes.
Okay, let me ask you this. So with like Hawk Tuah, if her moment comes and goes very quickly, do you think it's bad for her or is still a good thing? Because when that attention dries up for some people, it can be a little bit of a mindfuck.
Yeah, well, in her situation, I think she wasn't looking for fame. It's something that sort of fell into her lap. And I think for her, like, she'd probably be happy if the thing she was famous for wasn't, a Hawk Tuah joke. So I think that what she's done is she took what could have been construed as a negative and turned it into a positive. And right now she's been going on a lot of podcasts and talking to a lot of people. And I mean, she's living the dream. I don't discount that at all. And I think if it dries up for her, well, then it dries up for her. At the end of the day, we're going to go back and say, man, that was a funny time.
Yeah.
So she'll always be a part of pop culture.
The one thing about social media, and literally only joined Instagram because of this podcast and then joined TikTok like a few months ago because of the podcast. But I noticed people that start chasing numbers. And it can become intoxicating if you have success with it, but then it can become overwhelming when it's your entire existence. But I don't understand it as much as you, so I'm interested on how you feel about that.
Yeah, man. Look, it gets difficult. I've always thought as a media influencer, whatever we're supposed to call ourselves, the person we should want to be better than is ourselves. That I should want to be a better teacher, a better influencer, I hate that word, but I should want to be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday. And I should want to move forward, and each video that I make, I should hone in my crafts a little bit more. And it's a hard game, man, because sometimes you look at the numbers and you go, man, should I give up today? And sometimes you look at the numbers and you go, man, I feel like this video should have done better. And then sometimes, right, it's not even those factors. You're looking at like other things where you're looking at like, man, everybody's making a video about this viral song. Like, I'll give you an example. The song Psycho. A couple months ago, you remember when Psycho was going around?
I don't know the song.
Okay, so super classic, way back in the world country song called Psycho. It was recorded by a guy named Eddie Nowak. It was written by Leon Payne. The story of the song is legitimately a guy is a little loony, and he's basically going around on a killing spree unknowingly. First, he takes out his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend. He buries them beneath a tree. He wakes up in the middle of the night. He's choking his little brother. There's a puppy involved. There's a little girl next door involved. Everybody's dying.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really dark song that TikTok one day, people heard it on TikTok, probably through a video from someone that we know, and TikTok just blew it up. It became like Country Talk's theme song for a couple months. And yeah, man, we were so glad to see that, because that's a song that not a lot of people knew, that now, like the family, they probably are getting a huge check of residual because people are jamming that song.
The hell is wrong with you? He's killing dogs in it? And you're celebrating it?
Well, I understand. Yeah. I understand where your point is, you know.
So the point of that is that old stuff can come back and go viral
at any moment. And if you really like, if you only focus on going viral, it's going to drive you crazy. And the other thing I want to make sure I talk about is negativity as it pertains to content. Because, man, sometimes you'll make a video one day because you're tired, and it is a video where you're just negative and you're upset and you're putting people on blast. And that's the video that goes viral, and then you look bad.
Right.
We've all decided that's just not the place that we want to be. That's not the people that we want to be. We don't want to alienate any audience. And like, I deal in classic country. I don't want some young person that knows nothing about country music's first impression to be, well, boy, this guy, he really hates modern country. I don't want that. I want everyone to feel like they have a seat at the table.
Bro, you haven't been to Instagram comments.
I don't.
They go hard.
I'm sure. I only just started Instagram. I haven't cared about it.
I tried to engage with a Dolly fan as also a Dolly fan, and my engagement with her was not considered good enough in her eyes, and she called me a snob. I was like, I can't, I'm checking out of Instagram comments. We were talking about top singer-songwriters, and I had just thrown out names like Steve Earle and Townes Van Zandt, which are more of the ilk that I consider singer-songwriter. Unfortunately, in this case of Dolly and Willie, they're cultural icons. Yeah. I kind of put them on different levels. So I kind of look at the singer-songwriter as a little bit more of the drifter, you know, very stripped down. And I was just explaining that to the lady, like, oh, I love Dolly. I think she's one of the greatest songwriters ever. And I just had thought about it a little bit different than maybe you're thinking about it. She was like, well, that's kind of snobby. I was like, man, it can be a toxic place.
Comments can be rough because even people who agree with you hate your guts.
Yeah, but they're fun.
Yeah, it's always, I mean, for the most part, it's always fun. Sometimes people do get a little too into it. And I mean, look, once again, it's all a part of being better than you were yesterday. I'm sure there have been times in comment sections I've said some negative things to people I probably shouldn't have said to them, and they were probably just trying to convey their opinion, and I didn't agree with it and therefore thought they were wrong. I regret that a lot, but that's the nature of this social media too. Like, look, man, social media, for as much as we want social media to be this lovely, friendly place, sometimes it's just not a lovely, friendly place.
No.
And sometimes it's a lovely, friendly place for weird people. Like, you know about Gypsy Rose Blanchard? Do you know this whole deal?
Who's Gypsy Rose?
Oh, so Gypsy Rose is a lady who was a young person whose mother had basically placeboed her into thinking she was sick, like very sick.
Oh, is this the British woman?
No.
No, I think I've. Anyway, go ahead.
So She and a boyfriend basically kill her mother.
Cool.
She goes away. That's a great soundbite. She goes away, prison for a while, gets out earlier this year. And like the media is making her a hero. And you have people on two sides, because you have the people that on one side are going, you know, she was in a toxic environment and she overcame that environment. You know, and then there's people that are like, yeah, why are we giving this person a platform? They killed somebody. Like, you shouldn't be giving a murderer a platform. And it's like, dude, social media is a weird place sometimes.
Bro, I think one of the dumbest commandments is thou shalt not murder.
Yeah?
Yeah. I can make a case. First off, I love murder ballads.
Yeah.
But I can make a case why, murder is a good thing in a lot of situations.
And could be.
If someone assaults my sister, I'll kill him and be happy with it.
And so, like, do you expect then, though, that culturally, that society is going to lift you up? Or do you think, as a society, we should say, okay, you did a bad thing for the right reason, but we still maybe can't support that? Which side do you...
I mean, I'm just saying it depends on the reason.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%. Like, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, if I'm at dinner with someone and they say, Taylor, I murdered somebody, just my natural curiosity in that moment will be like, okay, I've got some questions I'm about to ask. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there could be more conversation. Maybe there's a good reason he killed somebody or they killed somebody. If someone's sitting at dinner for me and says that they raped a woman, I have no follow-up question. So I'm saying that murder is not always the worst thing.
Yeah. And I get that. I think in this particular case, it is weird just how, like, somebody goes from the prison to social media influencer pipeline.
Okay, but look, Sammy the Bull Gravano, he's celebrated nowadays. How many bodies does Sammy the Bull have?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, we celebrate Pablo Escobar is in a lot of ways celebrated. El Chapo's celebrated. We do celebrate gangsters and killers.
Well, and in a way, you're going to love that I can tie this in. Country music musicians, man. Like, look, George Jones shot at a lot of people. Ernest Tubb shot at a lot of people. Farron Young shot at a lot of people. These are documented, like incidents.
I know. And Johnny Cash did not shoot a Mandarina, but you love to hear him sing it.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of that comes from we want to root for the outlaw. Yeah. We want to root for the bad guy. But at what point do we want to root for the bad guy in hopes that he becomes the good guy?
So where do you come down on all this with like a Gypsy Rose?
I think it's weird. I really do. I think it's strange. Look, I don't think she's famous for any other reason other than the situation she was in. If she had a skill, or if she was like, whatever, it would be a different thing. Her whole platform's because she killed her mom. That's the whole reason we've elevated this person. It's kind of like, it's one thing if a guy who works at an ice cream shop, films with one of those little head cameras, him making ice cream every day. That guy being famous, well, he's doing the job, he's putting something together. She's just showing up with her silly voice and giving the internet sound bites, which is weird.
Bro, by the way, I love my mom. Mm-hmm. And when she hears me say she killed her mom and I just say cool, it's going to be a problem. So,
sure.
Sorry, Mom.
I'm sure.
Have you seen the woman that poisoned her husband and wrote a children's book about getting over grief?
No.
And got all kinds of media, it was all over the news promoting the book, and now it's been discovered that she poisoned her husband with drugs and killed him.
Wow.
Yeah. This is why we need Joey here to pull this shit up. Yeah.
That's
the woman got famous for being a grieving widow when it turned out she had overdosed her husband.
Wow. But that's what I'm saying though. So how many people were defending this woman and how many people weren't? And boy, this is an interesting podcast topic, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not of the mindset that murder is always wrong, but I've also never killed anybody. Right? So I think that when you do that, and then you're given a platform, which is basically saying, hey, here's this position of authority in our society where we believe your opinions matter, regardless of how good or bad your opinions are. We just gave a lady who killed somebody a platform to pretty much tell people what they should think or how they should feel about things.
But when you say we in that situation, you know that it's the general public.
Yeah, 100%. That's a societal thing.
Just since it's our first day in this studio, we might as well go ahead and learn. Easton, have you killed anybody? Okay, cool.
No.
All right, me neither. So
Easton says he has never killed anyone. So just so we're all on the right track here. Nobody has.
I just love how Dillon thought it was a good idea to like just make it clear, like I've never killed anyone. Like I had any concerns that you had.
No, but see, the whole point being then that I've never killed anybody. So how can I can't put myself in the point of view as someone who's killed somebody because I haven't killed somebody. But like, man, if I killed somebody and like that was what made me famous, I don't know if I would embrace it.
Have you ever heard the saying, the lady protesteth too much?
I have not.
Okay, well, it's from Shakespeare, and it means that the more someone denies something, the more guilty they might be. So I'm starting to wonder if maybe you have killed somebody, because you seem very adamant about making sure we know you didn't.
Listen, just I came from a city in which
that doesn't help your. There's plenty of crime in Pittsburgh.
Well, outside of Pittsburgh, look, I came from a city. If I was a murderer, we would know about it. Trust me,
bro. Speaking about killing people in Pittsburgh, the hell's wrong with y'all up there shooting at presidents?
Man, I'll tell you something crazy about that. My cousins were at the rally.
Are you for real?
Yeah. So that shooting took place like 30 minutes from my home. And they were there. They were like right there. Right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did they say about being there? Is it pretty traumatic?
I haven't spoken to them, full disclosure. That was all my mother's home, and she sort of filled me in. I would assume so. Dude, we're in a weird place, right, in society where, once again, shit like that happens, and it's like just a Tuesday,
Yeah, right?
Like, the fact that we in 2024 are still having people attempt assassination on our political figures is insane. You would think that that's something that we've been removed from.
Right.
That's something that we as people are just better than, and it's weird, man. But yeah, that literally hit close to home, and I want to say too, I want to talk about that part of the world because they've had a rough go the last couple of years. The East Palestine derailment,
right?
30 minutes from there.
Is it really?
Like that part of the world has had some really tragic shit happen to them.
Yeah,
and like, I don't know. I just don't. It's weird. It's weird to talk about.
The East Palestine's a weird one because everyone just basically tried to bury it and make it a non-story anymore. When there's like so many lingering effects from it.
Yeah, and I mean, as someone who worked in that area, like I saw, people were sick for weeks.
Yeah, people were going to Washington and banging on congressmen's doors, and they weren't taking meetings with them because they didn't want to hear it.
Yeah. And then came the envelopes where it was like, hey, if you're within this certain area, we have a class action lawsuit. If you're within this certain area, we'll give you $500 to never sue us. Like, it became really weird. It became really weird really quick.
Yeah.
And that's coming from someone that was in that area. I mean, fortunately, right, like I remember that night because I was on my way home from work.
This is the train derailment or
Yes,
the assassination?
the train derailment.
Yeah.
Because I was on my way home from work and I got an alert on my phone about the train derailment. That was the only context I had. Is that like similar to how they sent out like an Amber Alert? I guess for natural disasters they do that too, and they had sent out an alert. And I was in the alert range. Mm-hmm. And I think I still have that picture. I took a screenshot. I'll send it to you so you can use that.
What did they say on the alert?
Just hey. Effect for this area of evacuation is under effect for this area. There's been a train derailment or however they worded it. There's been an incident.
Was there any warning of chemicals?
No. They told people in a certain area that they should probably get out.
Were you within that area? Within that radius?
No, I wasn't in East Palestine, but I was in
I know, but 30 minutes away is pretty close.
I was close enough. I got the alert.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say is if you're 30 minutes away, are you given any warning of something you need to do or an action you need to take? Or are you not considered within the...
No, we weren't considered within the bound. They only wanted to pretty much clear out like that street, and that was it. And the reason being is what they did is they opened up the tankers, they spilt whatever the hell, and they lit it on fire.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
They do a controlled burn on like...
They did a controlled burn.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And...
So 30 minutes away is pretty close in that situation.
And people were sick. And then you worry about like that area having a lot of farmers, a lot of people who work with crop. Like, is their business now fucked? Because their crop is their crop affected? Because we're hearing one thing, but then we're seeing like the effects. And this is after, the world was in lockdown. So when people start getting a little sick, you're not sure if it's this, if it's that. Maybe it's just flu season. We had no idea. We just knew that there was definitely a weird something.
See, this is the situation where the people in Washington benefit when we're all down each other's throats. Because something like East Palestine happens, something like the assassination attempt happens, but we're so short-sighted and so ready to go down each other's throats on all kinds of issues that shit just gets buried in a matter of days.
Are you ready for me to blow your mind?
We'll see.
A couple months after the East Palestine derailment, another derailment happened 30 minutes away.
In Pittsburgh?
Where I live.
I mean, Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
I think I remember that because it started getting a lot of press after East Palestine for a while.
Now, that particular derailment there was nothing like toxic on that train. That was just like a freak accident. And I think there were like lima beans or something is what the whole freight was. But that accident took place over a water supply.
Oh, really?
So we could have had, in theory, but same company. So same train company. We could have had the same incident over our drinking water. That'll be great for the environment.
You know what's another one? Back to music. How weird we're with this now mixing of music and politics.
It's always been that way.
Has it though?
Yeah, well, guys like Graham Parsons are what created the outlaw movement, and I'll die on that hill. Their progressive rock country style is what created the outlaw.
What does that have to do with politics?
It was a little more subtle in those days, in a lot of cases, but yeah, those folks had their political opinions and songs. Johnny Cash had a song called "What Is Truth," which was 100% a political song. And there have been other artists for that same period of time that have let their political notions known, or what at that time were their political notions. Haggard had a lot of political tunes. It goes even before that with, Jimmy Rogers and Woody Guthrie. Like Woody Guthrie, the guy who wrote "This Land Is Your Land, This Land Is My Land," also wrote songs about like subdivisions being owned by billionaires. Look into who that billionaire was.
Who was it?
Fred Trump.
Oh, no shit. Really?
Yeah.
So Woody Guthrie, I'm guessing, was a liberal?
Yeah, Woody Guthrie was a liberal for the
Yeah.
So had those songs, and also had songs about like natural disaster, like the Dust Bowl. He had some songs about the Dust Bowl. And then that inspired the next line of artists. And the next line of artists sort of talked about things that were more dark, pressing issues for themselves, alcoholism, cheating, murder. And then there was a branch off a little bit later where, folks like Graham Parsons and Townes Van Zandt and Guy Clark, and that led into guys like Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson. Like, people let their opinions be known and in and out of their songs.
It's just, I wonder if maybe it's more prevalent to me now because we're seeing people like all over Twitter. Like, the only reason I bring it up is it doesn't affect me. Yeah. Like, so I maybe lean a little right. I'm more independent. I'm just kind of like socially liberal. Yeah. Economically, I'm agree much more with the right. I try to stay out of the religious issues because I don't understand why they have to bring so much hate. But people get attacked for their political beliefs online, and I'm like, okay, maybe I don't agree with it. Like Jason Isbell is a guy who goes hard on Twitter, and I don't agree with everything he says on Twitter, but I still love listening to the songs he's written. I still love listening to him. And it's like, but nowadays it's like starting to affect whether or not you feel like you can like someone's music. Like, how the hell am I going to change my senses to enjoy something based on someone's political belief?
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, we're all one opinion away from losing everything that we've built.
Right.
And it's hard because in some cases, not having an opinion is having an opinion, and people hate you for that. There was a lot of this stuff with what's happening in the Middle East and what's happening over in Ukraine, and like people would come into our lives and into our comments and are like, "What's your opinion on this?" And it's like, dude, I'm a guy who talks about country music. I'm not a political correspondent. And if you're coming to me, I appreciate that you're coming to me as a trusted figure, that you think that I do good research and that maybe I'm the right person to ask, but I'm not, because I'm not a political correspondent.
Do you think that we lose something special when we allow politics and music to interact or intersect?
Not necessarily, because I think some of the best songs came from that, time period. Like Woodstock was an example of a musical gathering that came from political discourse, right? So those sort of things, I think that it depends on how it's done, right? I think that if you're speaking out for what you think is right, regardless of what side you're on, man, go you. I think if you're latching yourself to an agenda because you know that you're going to get views and listens, that's disingenuous, and I don't respect that.
Yeah. Another thing that country music has done with, at the intersection of politics is breaking down racial barriers. One of the most beautiful histories of country music is the breaking down of racial barrier. We're seeing it play out right now with some of this Beyonce stuff in the news not too far back. Shabuzi has a number one, but you go back to Ray Charles, Modern Sounds of Country Music, and people like Johnny Cash having everyone on his show. That's one of the most beautiful parts of country music history, is the consistent tearing down of racial barriers. And I hate when I see the press somewhat put it in a light that it's still prevalent in country music.
It's hard. I think that's once again, I'm not a political correspondent, I'm not a social correspondent, but my opinion on that is simple. I think there's good people and bad people in every aspect of life. And I think there's some people who, probably are in the country music world who aren't as accepting as others. Fuck those people. Their opinion shouldn't matter at all. And for whatever reason, it seems like that's the stuff that gets publicized a lot. I don't get that.
Yeah.
I think if we're going to publicize people, we should be publicizing the people that look at those, Beyonce albums and Shabuzi, and they say, man, this is great because it's getting the most ears on country music. I think those are the things we should be publicizing, not the negativity.
Yeah, I don't hate Old Town Road because of racism. I hate Old Town Road because the song sucked.
Not a big Billy Ray guy, huh?
Oh, man, that guy's tried to kill country music on more than one occasion.
Oh, you'll get in trouble with that, with those comments.
It's my feelings. Yeah. That's the point. It's music. I don't like it. Now, other people love the songs.
Yeah.
Good for you. And to be honest with you, I can give Billy Ray some credit. The songs Some Gave All and It Could Have Been Me, I thought were two good songs. Yeah. But boy, when he has a big hit, it seems like it's trying to screw country music over.
It's weird. I'm going to do something very unexpected. I'm going to give Billy Ray Cyrus some credit. Billy Ray had a song, I forget the name. He had a song with George Jones and Loretta Lynn. And it's like one of the best country songs you'll ever hear.
No kidding.
One of the best. And I think it's Country Music Said Goodbye to the Blues or something like that is what I think it's called. But it's one of the best country songs you'll ever hear. And like that couldn't have happened without Billy. And I think the hope was when it was recorded originally, probably 95, is that I think the hope was, this is going to be a hit because everything Billy does is a hit. And then that became like the one dud. And then later when he put out like his ultimate anthology collection in the mid-2000s, it was on that album. And he didn't need to include it, but he did. And that, to me, is respectable. So while there are people I could have negative things to say about, even though I try to not do that as much these days, I have respect for Billy in that regard. There's also a great clip of when Billy Ray Cyrus appeared on George Jones's old show on TNN, the Nashville network.
I've seen it.
Man, to hear Billy Ray talk with George, you can tell he's someone who loves country music. He just was put in a situation where his country, the country he loved, wasn't the country they were asking him to perform. And man, he didn't come from much. So
yeah, I guess I can give him this leniency on Achy Breaky Heart. It probably wasn't his idea to pull up in a limo with a name on the marquee and make him look like that as a beginning artist. Look, I've made this point before, and it's not to knock Billy Ray, but you had Jim McBride and Alan Jackson in 1989 putting a song in a line, chasing that neon rainbow, just trying to be somebody. You had Stuart Harris and Jill Colucci writing a song that Travis Tritt would record in 89 called I'm Gonna Be Somebody. That late 80s, in 89, 86, those classes I've always talked about, they were still very aspirational artists, and country music was still a very aspirational genre, trying to find its place in pop culture. So I didn't like that by the early 90s, with like the explosion of Friends in Low Places and Boot Scootin' Boogie, which were great songs for me, other artists started trying to copy that and say, oh, look, you can debut as a big star. Those guys in 89, 86, all throughout the 80s, 70s, 60s, man, they had to pay their dues even after they got their record deals. And then immediately we started making these huge stars. Credit to Shania. People think that she was kind of created as a big star. She had an album before she blew up with a song I love, Dance with the One That Brought You. So like she kind of had to pay her dues also.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that country music didn't learn anything from that. Because what I mean by that is, okay, we decided in the 90s that we were going to have, I hate this phrasing too, but for lack of better terminology, we were going to have sort of industry plants.
Right.
And then in the 2000s, we turn around and we say, okay, that country music, that's garbage. We're going in a more pop route. What do we have? What's relevant? Well, American Idol's the most watched television program in the world. We're going to throw as many country acts on American Idol as possible, hoping one sticks. And several of those beginning winners and finalists were people that would become huge. Carrie Underwood, Kelly Pickler, Kelly Clarkson. I'm sure there's more that I'm just spacing on. And then we go on, and there's 5 years where the country music that's out there was very showy, very pop. And then 5-10 years go by. Man, we need a new country act. Let's pull out The Voice. And so country acts come from The Voice, and it's like, man, we haven't learned a thing. And now the one thing I think is great about TikTok, man, I can't think of a platform that's made more stars than TikTok. From Zach Bryan to Oliver Anthony to, and he already had his career for 10 years, but I mean, make no mistake, Tyler Childers' audience grew tenfold when people started using his music on TikTok. And some
really?
of them, yeah, because his songs became a lot of the ones that were songs that were used. There were a lot of people who didn't know who Tyler Childers was before TikTok. And then they started using his earlier songs. And then, of course, he's become a different sort of artist. So there's a big split between people who listen to him, between people who were pre and people who were post. And then, a lot of people want old Childers to come back. And some people are like, well, this is sober Childers. Country music is a fickle thing.
Bro, how weird is it when fans get mad that someone they discovered early in their career start to get too big, and then it's not just kind of their thing, now it's everyone's thing? It doesn't make sense to me when like people get so angry that like someone starts to blow up.
It can be an interesting thing, and I've made videos on this in the past, where the way that I've put it is, like, I was one of the folks who was pretty early to the Zach Bryan party. I don't listen to Zach Bryan much anymore. Not because I don't like him. He's gone in a different direction that isn't as much for me as that past direction. But he's successful, and that makes me a winner.
Okay.
Like, the fact that I was there for the party at some point, and I can say, I have videos that back it up. There's people who had learned about him through me. There's no better feeling for me. That makes me a winner.
I like Zach. I can't wait to go see him in concert and see Revival. It looks like a fun time just to see Revival for the encore. But I wasn't early to Zach like you were. So what was it? What about it has his music changed?
Earlier, you and I were talking about how you would love for someone to do like just a voice demo.
Yeah.
That was it. When he started, the first videos that were popularized of him, he was in like a college dorm room playing music for some lady.
Yeah.
And then it became he's sitting around, a fire in Florida, and he's, just him and a guitar, and the fire's crackling in the background, and his voice is rugged, and he's pouring sweat. It was a visual audio. It was everything. And then he did the first couple albums, and they're just as raw, right? Literally, they put mattresses on the walls of a barn, put up microphones, and everybody's sitting around singing and having a good time. It was as much authentic as it was aesthetic. And that's something like, for me, someone who cherishes the storytelling, that was my thing. Because I like that aesthetic, I want it to be authentic. This music is for the people sitting around fires and having a good time. And truthfully, it's for everybody, but that's the main demo.
Yeah.
And then it became, and I hate to say anything negative, but it just seems like it became more what works on radio. What's gonna get played every hour on the hour? What style? And
wait a second. I don't listen to radio much. Mm-hmm. Does he get played on radio? Yeah. Oh, well, good for him.
Yeah. Which exactly, good for him. I'm happy to see that. It's one of those things where you love to see the artist succeed. You love to see them go in their own direction because that's respectable. But as someone who enjoyed the music, it's harder for me to enjoy the music, but his new albums aren't made for me, and that's okay. I wish more people could say that. I think we would have way less arguments in this industry if more people could say, hey, that music just isn't for me. And that's something that I learned to say about, like, when people talk to me, I say, for me, my classification of country music is 1975 and before. So when I talk about the 90s and the 2000s, I don't know as much. My knowledge drops. And having said that, I'm just not a fan, but also that wasn't made for me. That style isn't for me.
Yeah, not everybody can be like George Strait and Alan Jackson. Sometimes people pick up trends and whatnot, but like people like Alan and George, man, and Randy Travis when he was, in his heyday, they were just unapologetic. Yeah. I get that sometimes people have to kind of maneuver through and start to follow other sounds, but sometimes you got to let artists make mistakes as they chase something. And as they chase greatness in a way.
And do their own thing. Some of the best recordings that Randy Travis has were one-offs that came from television shows.
Yeah, Matlock comes to mind.
Matlock.
Hey, we played that the other night. You played that the other night on your radio show.
On the TikTok Live. Yes. Life of the Party was a song that was featured only in an episode of Matlock. Episode of Matlock airs. They never did anything with it, and I don't know why. Later, Hey Arnold was a show that Nickelodeon had. I don't know if you're familiar, but it was a show that Nickelodeon had sort of during my youth, and Randy Travis made an appearance on there, and he sang a song called The Simple Things, and it's just a hokey little feel-good song. Once again, never recorded it, but now when you talk about those songs, people know them because it just makes people feel good.
So let me ask this. What is your favorite era of country music?
It's a split era between 65 to 75. That to me is when everybody was at their best, when production was at its best, when the artists themselves were at their best. And I'm not saying they were the best people. I'm not saying that they weren't dealing with horrific issues. I believe that's when the music was the best.
And examples?
Man, so many. Obviously, you had the movement with Waylon and Willie, and you had through that, guys like Paycheck. But then you also had guys like Jim Ed Brown and Bill Anderson. And then while, yes, you had, your Hank Juniors, you had your Bobby Bears, your Tom T. Halls. You had, just so many people putting out things. And what was great is there was something for everyone. It wasn't all just copy and paste the same sound. But yeah, those are just some of the examples that I have.
It's so funny because me, you, and Dylan Weldon are all friends. You're 65 to 75. I'm pretty sure Dylan said on the show he's 75 to 85, and I'm 85 to 95.
Yeah, and it's funny that too, our ages, you would think it would be flipped.
Right.
Because, no offense to you fellas, I'm the youngest, and
Yeah.
then Weldon's in the middle, and you're the oldest. So you would assume that it would
Yeah,
be
it is.
flipped.
It is flipped. I didn't think about that. Bro, how great is Tom T. Hall?
The best, and nobody talks about him.
Right?
I'm happy. There's some things that make me happy, like the show The Newsroom. They had done That's How I Got to Memphis.
You know who wrote that show, right?
I don't.
Aaron Sorkin.
Oh, okay.
So Aaron Sorkin is the reason that song ends up in there, and Jeff Daniels is a good musician. But I know they play it at the funeral when the kid's dad dies, and he plays it with the news anchor. I'm a huge Aaron Sorkin fan. Go ahead.
Fantastic. No, thank you. So that helps me because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's where I think more recently, That's How I Got to Memphis, specifically the word of Tom T. Hall sort of got spread.
That and the Avett Brothers.
Yeah, and Daryl Dodd. There were a lot of people that were paying homage. There were a lot of people that had paid homage, and most of those people all did pay homage with that song. Like, for whatever reason, That's How I Got to Memphis became the definitive Tom T. Hall song. Is it? I don't know. It wasn't his definitive song. But then, I have this, humble following, and I'm getting questions about artists every day. Tell me about George Jones. Tell me about Waylon Jennings. Tell me about Merle Haggard. And I go, I want to talk about Tom T. Hall because nobody else is. And Tom T. was so much more than just, the two songs people might know. He was so much more than Harper Valley PTA. He was so much more than That's How I Got to Memphis. He was so much more than the year Clayton Delaney died. This was a man who... Do you want me to tell the story like this? It's going to be sort of long-winded.
How long-winded?
I can try to keep her quick, but it is. I mean, it's sort of going over like his whole deal because it's interesting.
It's your show.
Thank you. When Tom T. Hall came to Nashville, he got his start working for Jimmy C. Newman. Jimmy C. Newman and Dave Dudley were like the only people that were recording his songs. And there were songs like DJ for a Day and whatnot. And they were great recordings. Tom comes to Nashville. And Tom's just working for them. Song plugging is what they called it. Just writing anything that'll stick. And he would do that his whole career. So from there, he writes a song a lot of people don't know is his, and that's Hello Vietnam. Goodbye, My Sweetheart, Hello Vietnam. It was a soundtrack on what's the war movie with the drill instructor?
Oh, shit. Where the guy blows his head off?
Yeah.
Oh,
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
that reminded me, Full Metal Jacket. So Tom writes that. It becomes a huge hit. Goes on, writes a couple songs. Has Bobby Bear record Margie's at the Lincoln Park Inn, which becomes the song every man in Nashville wants to record. Around the same time, writes Harper Valley PTA. Jeannie C. Riley has a huge hit with it. Every woman in Nashville's recording Harper Valley PTA. Around that same time, Tom's doing his own thing with his own songs, and he's building his own career. builds up his own career, great legacy of songs, like one of the best legacy of songs. Gets to a certain point where he's like, guys, I think I'm going to retire. I think I'm done now. Tom T cited his reason coming to Nashville was for the women and the beer.
Good reason.
He didn't come here for the music, you know? And so once he did, you know, once he made it work with the music, he had sort of got his fill. And in the mid-'80s, he decided, I'm retiring. Retires, goes home, does appearances for the next 10 years or so, but not much. The story is, and this pertains to you, it's an Alan Jackson story.
Okay.
The story is he was over in Australia doing a show, doing like a small tour in Australia, the early 90s. And he's over in Australia. He loved Australia. He starts writing some songs. Comes home, Johnny Cash calls him and says, I really like something of yours I can put in my museum in Florida. Tom, I think, gives him a guitar. The songs that he had written, the two songs that he had said to have written in that time, were a song called Bill Monroe for Breakfast, which would be the song from his Return album, and Little Bitty, which was his last number one.
Yeah.
Because Alan Jackson cut it.
There we go. That is from Alan's favorite album that he's at, my favorite album of Alan's that has that song on it. Everything I Love.
That's a gut-wrenching song. The last thing that I want to say about Tom T. Hall, because I know I know it's a little long-winded.
No, go ahead, buddy. We got time.
You know, Tom had some issues at the end, and Tom would take his own life. And I, from time to time, get comments about that. You know, Tom was a coward and this or that. I think there are a lot of people in the country music space who deal with those sort of demons. Mm-hmm. I think that's why alcoholism and drug use runs rampant in this occupation. And I think to call someone like that a coward is just completely unfair.
Yeah.
And so I want to make that known on the show that, you know, if that's your mindset, I don't even want to have that, you know, discussion.
Yeah, there's a long line. Look, the 27 Club could be considered some form of suicide. It's just artists that are pushing the limits and falling into drugs. But I've been told that people like Charlie Pride had extreme depression. It runs rampant with creatives. Yeah. And I mean, I just don't see how you could all of a sudden decide someone had all this talent but took their life. It means that they're not defined by their talent. They also had serious things going on. So I just don't get that critical of someone that's taken their life. It happened with Farron. Yeah. We've talked about that.
Farron Young, yeah.
Did Mindy McCready kill herself?
I believe so, but I don't know the details.
I think that's one of the more recent ones, but she had some problems with drugs. But I'm just saying that it runs rampant with the drug use and overdoses and suicides, and it's just part of this chasing something in life.
It doesn't make someone any less,
and not in my opinion.
That they struggled and lost. You know, you wouldn't say to a guy who died of cancer, you know, oh well, you know, what a coward, what a weakling, yeah. You know. That depression deal is just a different battle.
Right.
And not everybody gets to win, unfortunately.
Well, look, this is what I was asking you about earlier, really what I was getting at with some of these viral sensations and viral stars, that some of this fame is fleeting and it's going to come and it's going to go. Well, it's the same thing for artists. You know, they say this is a 10-year town. Well, if you make it, your career arc is really 10 years, if you're lucky. Your first record deal is going to be looking to unload you after your first greatest hits album, and that's not going to come in year 10. That's going to come in year 5 and 6 if you're very successful. So, and then, you know, the new younger generation's always coming up under you, and people feel like the genre or the art form has passed them by, and the attention's gone away. I mean, imagine playing for stadiums.
Yeah. And what's crazy is a lot of these guys, man, yesterday we're playing a honky-tonk and today we're playing stadiums.
And they're going to go back to playing theaters.
And, well, but not always. Sometimes, like, these guys, and right, we don't know right now, but there's some guys, like, right now specifically, who are blowing up in the same sort of vein that a Zach Bryan did. You look at Zach Top. You look at Braxton Keith. You look at some of the musicians that have all those characteristics. Like I'll always talk about the Reeves brothers because I love those guys. And they're great. They've worked with Craig Morgan. They've gone on tour with him. And I really hope to see them blow up in the next couple of years because if anybody's earned it, deserved it, man, it's them. And they're doing a great job keeping this alive. And like I got to talk to Braxton Keith and interview him. Like right before he really like became once again sort of TikTok took one of his songs. And that's great for these guys. And he's a guy who, like, I don't think that success is going to be fleeting for him. I really think that he's going to take that and elevate himself. And I'm so happy. Like, to be even just a blotch on these guys' map, that makes me so, happy.
It's just with art, you can see that where some people are trying to commercialize it and some people are just doing it for the love of it. If you chase it for the commercialization, that day is going to come to an end and you're going to have a true test of your character at that point. Yeah. But you are right. There are some people that still sell out stadiums. I saw Garth on his last tour. That stadium was packed.
Oh, yeah.
In Birmingham.
And George Strait's still breaking records.
Oh, hell yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I am curious on what your thoughts are on the AI as it pertains to the vocals. Obviously, Randy Travis had... he was unable to do the singing, so they used AI so he could have a voice again. And obviously there's some people that are just using AI to better their already existing voices, good or bad. How do you feel about that? Like, what's your...
So Randy Travis was the one, and we've talked about it on the podcast numerous times, so
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, buddy. Every podcast is different. I like the Randy thing. The Randy thing kind of humbled me because I had been talking to numerous songwriters on the podcast saying that I think this is bad. This is going to get really bad. We're going to be falling in love with songwriters and find out that they never wrote a damn lyric. This is in the future. Then Randy comes along and I'm like, well, maybe I haven't been thinking about this the right way. Maybe this is a huge gift to someone like Randy. So with the vocal that can help a person with a disability, I've kind of been swayed to believe, you know what, that's a great thing. When you see Randy Travis smile, enjoying his own music, how can I complain with that or argue with that? But recreating someone's voice, like, or never knowing someone's true voice, like a Milli Vanilli kind of thing. You know who Milli Vanilli was? Okay. So you're kind of young. But a Milli Vanilli kind of thing, but just implanting AI or songwriters that never write a lyric but have the greatest songs ever, and I find out that my emotional connection with them was actually a violation of trust because it's them just creating it on ChatGPT. Man, it gets iffy.
I'll tell you what scares me. What scares me, and this is not anything negative against these guys, but what I don't want to see is like a Morgan Wallen have a featured song with Merle Haggard and like they use AI to recreate what Merle Haggard would sound like.
I don't think we're going to get there.
See, I'm fearful of that because I think that like those guys love traditional country. They know, hey man, we don't have that audience. We don't have traditional country audience. How do we get there? Well, maybe if we do some stuff like that. And I think that would be like a collaborative album. And maybe I'm giving some record executive a great idea. But if you get a collaborative album, which they do way more of now than they've ever done before, where you have, Luke Combs and Hardy and Laney and all these people, and you say you have one musician who's no longer with us, do a song of theirs. Man.
You named 3 people who I don't think would do it.
Really?
Yeah, I think Lainey Wilson, I love her personality. I think if they told her, hey, you're going to do a duet with Tammy Wynette, she would say, I'm not interested in compromising the integrity of this music I love. You can go fuck yourself.
I really hope that's the case.
The closest thing we've had to it that's not AI would probably be Hank Jr. and Hank Sr. when they
with the Three
did
Hanks album.
No, but there was a version a long time ago where they put Hank and Hank together.
Yeah, there's a Tear in My Beer. They did the video.
Yeah.
That was they had the album The Three Hanks.
So like when something like that happened pre-AI, that was really neat.
Yeah.
They were able to, manipulate it to happen, but it happened. I think I embraced that. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But boy, I mean, if Luke Combs was to go out there and say, I did a duet with a dead artist, I don't know if people, because I love Luke. And I think Luke really loves country music. I think he has country music's best intentions in his heart. So I don't see it happening. Do you think someone will do it?
In a heartbeat. If the money's there, in a heartbeat. And at this point, too, a lot of these folks, right, I mean, they're at the mercy of their label. If the label tells you, hey, this is the direction we're going, it's the direction we're going, It's hard. A lot of these guys, and I know a lot of them are happy to be in that situation, but a lot of these guys are sort of in a hostage situation. I think if some of the labels say this is what we're doing, and see, the thing is, my hope is that the labels would never do that because they don't want to look back to the past. They only want to look in the future, right? You talked about Luke Combs and his love of country music, and I want to talk about something real quick. Are you familiar with the song Greystone Chapel?
By?
Johnny Cash. Mm-mm. So the Live from Folsom album, Johnny Cash had a recording called Greystone Chapel. Luke Combs did a cover of it 5-10 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The story of that is super cool. So Johnny Cash goes to Folsom, and some of the guards take a sheet of lyrics, and they say, John, one of our inmates wrote this song. A man named Glenn Shirley wrote a song called Greystone Chapel. And the idea of the whole song is that you're a prisoner who's, found religion inside the walls of prison. My body may be, but the Lord has set my soul free. And that's the crux. John goes out there, not really prepared for the song, and he goes, here's one that one of the inmates wrote. It's Glenn Shirley, Take a Bow, and they do it. And it's on the album. It's one of the greatest songs, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he got to watch Cash play his song?
Yes, and not only that, so Glenn was later able to get out, and John took him on tour.
Wow.
John took Glenn Shirley on tour to the point that Glenn Shirley got to go back and do what John did for him for other prisoners.
God, so Johnny Cash did that for Merle Haggard and Glenn, where someone was in the audience that was going to be inspired.
Yeah. And nobody ever talks about Glenn. Not that it matters, not to get depressing, but Glenn, another victim of the times, also took his life.
What was he in prison for?
I don't know. I know it wasn't good. He was there a long time, so it wasn't good. Glenn made his peace and found God, and he worked with John for a long time, and he would end up taking his life as well. But there's a great album that's also a live prison album called The Measure of a Man. And that's Glenn Shirley's album. I think when he went to Folsom, he went back. And
that's cool.
John had him do a live album in front of the same inmates that he knew. And he has, there's some tributes to John. And John's singing back up, and I think the Statlers and the Carters are there. It is a hell of an album nobody knows about.
We don't have enough guys with criminal past anymore in country music. Those guys used to be the characters. I think the closest we have right now is Jelly Roll, and that was Juvie.
I think I think he did have I think it did go into adulthood. But for the most part, that's where it started. I think his main criminal career was his juvenile years.
Yeah, but I like Jelly Roll. Yeah. I really like what he's done. I think he carries a great message of inspiration, but we don't have a lot of those in country music anymore.
No. And there again, right?
They're doing background checks nowadays.
That's the thing. It all goes into that. It's like, well, is it better? Do we want... That goes into the whole social media thing. Are we going to give someone who is an ex-con an influence? And in the case of Jelly Roll and Bunny, I don't think anybody's going to tell you that they're perfect people, but they know that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of their thing. And also, they're very, in their words, they will tell you they're an ex-con, an ex-junkie, and a prostitute from Vegas. Like, that's what they'll tell you. So if you are someone who's going to get upset at them for just being themselves and telling their story, that's on you, because they laid down the parameters. They're not hiding.
Bro, you know why I love them? For that reason. Like, you know that at some point they've been in front of a publicist. Someone's tried to get their hooks into them and say, I want to kind of attach that train. And you know that there would be some of them would be like, hey, you can't tell this people in public. You gotta put on a facade and just say you've been to juvie, but we can't tell everything. And they're like, fuck you, I'm going to own my truth. I think the most important thing right now in music is authenticity. I think there are so many people that are just being built up by the machine that we have to maintain authentic.
And that goes into what I was talking about being authentic and being as, that aesthetic. And I don't think, by the way, that every country singer needs to be a country person. Like, I'm not a cowboy, right? I don't run around and claim to be a cowboy. I don't think that where you live, where you grow up, what you deal with, I don't think that defines the kind of music you can perform. I think as long as you're staying true to yourself and telling stories that fit you, man, you can do it. You can be a country act, Not everybody, because on the other side, not everybody needs to come from the stockyards. Not everybody needs to know how to ride a bull and, skin a buck.
Well, that's a weird one, right? When people judge people on where they're from. Yeah. So Dillan Weldon has told me that, there's people that accuse him of not being from the country. Yeah. You've told me that people have said that you must not be a historian because you're from the city. Like, the passion for music, how the hell does that have anything to do with anything where anyone's from?
I've thought a lot about this, and I think what it is people just want to knock down other people. Like, meaning a guy who says that, oh, well, Weldon didn't really grow up in the country, which he did. They're saying that because they want to say, oh, well, I'm more country than him. I'm more cowboy than him. I know my country music. He doesn't know anything. He's a figurehead. Whereas, like me, it's, okay, well, where's your horse? Where's your cowboy hat? You came from the city. You don't have the accent that I have. How are you, a kid from the northern United States, going to tell me, a southerner, about country music?
Yeah.
How do you debate that? How do you, because at that point,
you can't.
Yeah, at that point, they've already made their decision. They don't care about my knowledge. Their only thought process is, this guy, I'm not going to let a northerner tell me about country music. That's what they're saying. You can't win in that situation. They've already made up their mind.
Yeah, the people out there that just want to bring other people down is so amazing to me. For you as a content creator, who do you think are the best country music content creators out there right now?
Man, that's a stacked question. There used to be a lot less of us, and then there used to be a lot more of us. Of course, Weldon. Dillan Weldon is... Man, if it wasn't for him, I would have, given up a long time ago. He's always been a voice of instigation in the best way.
Yeah.
Nikki in Nashville, who has taken an audience and educated so many. And Nikki, I'm so glad that I had time to work with her, that we did some lives and interviews together, and she's just such an amazing, like, breath of fresh air. Now look, full disclosure, her music and my music might not be the same, but we could still get together and conduct interviews and have a good time and appreciate each other. Country versus Metal is a great page for the people who have never experienced what it is like to be an outsider. Patrick is that person. He was a guy who grew up like disdain for country music, and now is an adult guitarist and a very skilled one at that. He's going back and listening to country music and giving these guys credit for what their contributions were. He didn't realize when he was young Man, a guy like Waylon Jennings shreds. A guy like Roy Clark. A guy like Chet Atkins. Those guys shred. Of course, the greatest of them all, Jerry Reed.
Oh boy, let's go. I've met his daughters. They are the sweetest people. So nice. Sedina, I've seen her videos of her playing back in the day. Oh boy, she could sing.
Jerry Reed, an actor, an artist, a writer, he could do it all.
He was really one of country music's early pop culture icons.
Oh, 100%. And this is no discount to him. I'm sure he would have said the same thing. He had that without being a sex symbol.
Yeah.
He was just him. There had been other guys who their whole gimmick was their shirts were half off. He was just himself. He was a funny, redneck kind of guy.
Man, do you know the story of when Elvis was doing Guitar Man in Nashville?
I would love for you to tell me.
So Sedina and her dad were down the Cumberland, I believe, and Elvis was in town cutting Guitar Man, and they kept trying to do the guitar part. And they were like, man, I couldn't get it. I think Elvis didn't like it. And someone said, well, Jerry has his own style. Jerry has that claw. If you want it, you're going to have to call Jerry. So they called Jerry, and he goes over and cuts it with them that day because he was covering it. And I think it ended up on his comeback special.
So,
but like that's one of those things. Like how great Jerry was he couldn't be copied.
Well, so to continue, he got there, and Colonel Tom had a rule. If you were going to record with Elvis full suit, Jerry shows up fishing gear.
Yeah.
They let it go because it's Jerry Reed. Jerry gets in there and he goes, Elvis, I know why you couldn't do it. He had looped it. He had recorded himself playing once and then looped over it, him playing again, and that's why they couldn't duplicate it.
Okay.
And Jerry Reed is, to my knowledge, the one person, when Elvis recorded your song, he got 50% and he owned it.
Right.
Not Guitar Man.
I think I asked them that when I talked to them because I was like, so Dolly had to turn them down with I Will Always Love You. Yeah. So I wonder what happened with Guitar Town, and I think that the immediacy of the moment, like how they went about it, and like they needed Jerry, so there really wasn't a place for Colonel to kind of play a game there.
And to my knowledge, he's the one who got one over on old Colonel Tom.
Yeah, man, that Colonel, it's a complicated thing for me. I've had people tell me, because I'm such a big Elvis fan, I've had people tell me that the Colonel was the magic behind Elvis, and I've had so many people tell me that he was an SOB who screwed everybody, and tend to agree with the latter, but there are some people that credit him with it's like the Epstein guy with the Beatles.
Yeah.
They credit Epstein with not
that Epstein.
Not that Epstein. What was it, Brian Epstein?
I think, yeah.
But they credit him with being the guy that really made the Beatles palatable for the mass audience, and then after that, they kind of went at whatever the same for the Colonel.
Well, so I think with the Colonel, and there's a lot of people, like you said, that love him, a lot of people that don't. Elvis himself said, if there was no Colonel, there wouldn't have been an Elvis at this level. But towards the end, it seemed like Elvis was about to sort of do his own thing, and we can't confirm that because only two people know that story, and both of them are dead. But like guys like, or rather individuals, Mother Maybelle Carter loved him. I think they played cards together, is the story.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like he screwed over Hank Snow big time. And so like Hank...
Colonel or Elvis?
Colonel screwed over. You don't know this story?
I know the story about...
Okay.
Oh, I know that story,
Yeah.
but I thought you were saying Elvis, and I didn't...
No. Hank Snow. So like Hank Snow, he did not have many good things to say. I think the quote, and like just off the top of my head, I've worked with managers over 40 years, and Colonel Tom's the worst one I've ever met, the most, inconceivable.
Okay, I am not a Colonel defender. Mm-hmm. I love Elvis. His music's great, and that's what I focus on. Is it possible Hank Snow was a little bitter that this kid came along and sucked up all the oxygen out of the room and was just the greatest ever. And he lost the Colonel to him because he was more valuable.
The deal was he and Colonel both got a percentage. When the paperwork got signed, Colonel changed the contract, giving Hank Snow no credit, no credibility, and no...
Wait, are you saying Hank Snow was supposed to have a percentage of Elvis? Why the hell would he deserve a percentage of Elvis?
From what I understand, it had to do with some different things that he and the Colonel were both in business with. That they were both in business. They had this agreement. Because at that time, Hank Snow was like the artist on the planet. And so they had this business agreement where they had Elvis. They were going to have a split. And the story as it goes, I believe, is something along the lines of Colonel Tom Parker is having Elvis's parents and everybody signing different paperwork. And he had given Snow the paperwork and said, this is the contract. Snow went over it, agreed 100%, went to the Elvis people because Elvis's dad was his manager. That's why they had to sign off. Went to Elvis's parents and said, listen, Colonel Tom's going to take good care of your son. He's going to be big. We're going to do everything we can do. Talked him up. The next day, Colonel Tom went, had them sign the paperwork. Hank Snow wasn't there. The contract was changed. When Hank Snow went to Colonel Tom Parker, and this story comes from Hank Snow's son, Jimmy, the Reverend. There's a great documentary on this that I'll hook you up with. Jimmy tells the story, and he says Colonel Tom Parker got in his dad's face and said, Hank said, we have a deal. And Colonel said, we don't have anything. I have Elvis. You don't have anything. And that was the end of their relationship.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I got to be honest with you. I would have liked to have seen Elvis leave Colonel a lot earlier. He might still be alive if he did. Not still alive, but he would have lived longer. Yeah. But I don't know why Hank would have a piece of Elvis still, even with that story.
Yeah, it's, once again, that's all like from the Carney days, right? There was a period of time where 3 people owned Nashville, If your
I get it.
If your name wasn't Rose, Acuff, or Atkins, but everybody had a little piece here and there, and people were working in different back closet deals. Nashville was a shady place,
Well, imagine Colonel couldn't take him international because I don't think he had a passport.
No.
I don't think he was who he said he was.
Well, I wouldn't assume. The story is, that Colonel was a stowaway, that he was brought into the country illegally, and that's why he couldn't take Elvis. That's why he wouldn't allow Elvis to do international. He had to stay here because Colonel Tom couldn't.
Bro, we had Tony Brown on the podcast, and you know how fucked up it is that they came in the day Elvis died, and they were waiting in the hangar in Nashville to get on a plane, and they came in and told him go home. They didn't even tell him he had died.
Do you know if Tony has one of the necklaces?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he does. Neat.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story off air about that because. Anyway,
yeah,
I can't.
Sure.
I just learned the story the other day.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah. Anyway, I can't say anything more about it.
Yeah.
But yes, he does. They have 2.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people. Those necklaces. So for those of you who don't know, Elvis had the trademark taken care of business, and you would have he would give away necklaces to his friends and people that were close to him and people that worked with him, and it was TCB with a little lightning bolt. And a lot of people have those necklaces, but the people that have those necklaces were sort of sacred because they were in Elvis's inner circle. And I know a lot of the stories come from just Elvis being so kind, and people are trembling, and Elvis says, I have a gift for you. And he opens up this big package, and it's the necklace, and normally the people are trembling when they go to pick it up, and Elvis says, well, let me get that for you. And Elvis puts the necklace on them, gives them a hug, and says, welcome to the family.
Yeah, I was with a woman the other day that has one.
Wow.
Yeah. And I didn't even notice she was wearing it. And I was like, oh my God. So I shouldn't say this to Elvis fans because I don't know if this is blasphemy, but Tony got the Icon Award recently. So I made him a shirt that said TFB with the lightning bolt, Tony fucking Brown.
Yeah. I like that. That's nice.
Tony's the best. But no, I just can't believe like the secrecy back then. Like the guy died and they wouldn't even tell the band.
Yeah. Oh man, it was like you know the story about Hank Sr. dying.
In the car?
Yeah. Well,
But
okay,
I don't
so,
know. I don't know the whole story.
So they go to the venue, and I forget who was playing the venue, but they were some pretty well known artists. They get to the venue, and they're told, guys, like, Hank's dead, and they thought it was a joke. So they go announce to the crowd, guys, Hank Williams Jr. is dead, or Hank Williams Sr. Yeah, he's dead, and the crowd thinks it's a joke. So the crowd's not going anywhere. Like, they're waiting. And finally, around like the third time, and the acts are like, guys, where's he at? And they're like, he's dead. He's dead. He's done. They went out and they said, guys, no, we're serious. He's gone.
Man, that's like one of those days where you never forget where you are.
Yeah.
What year did he die?
Oh, I'm terrible with years. That's like the worst thing you could ask me because I have no idea. Not even a clue. I know it was. All I can tell you is that I know that it was January 1st. I know that he died on New Year.
Oh, that's right. But someone was driving him to a gig.
Yeah, they were going to a gig. I think they were going from Mobile to Ohio, somewhere in Ohio. I think is
the greatest Super Bowl commercial ever was Hank Williams Sr. Your Cheating Heart. Mm. Have you ever seen the old Super Bowl commercial?
I don't think I have.
Where the Coca-Cola guy takes the Pepsi. You got to watch it when you get out.
Oh,
here.
Yeah, really?
This is why I need Joey here so he can play some of this stuff. Well, anyway, so I forgot where we were. We were talking about Hank Sr.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole story there. It's he was so young and so powerful at that time that the crew didn't want to believe it. The other workers didn't want to believe it. The audience certainly didn't want to believe it. And a lot of people, the news was broken to them on the radio, breaking news bulletin, Hank Sr.'s, Hank Williams is dead, 27 or whatever,
Man, is he also part of the 27 Club?
See, I said 27, but I'm not, it was around there. He could have been 28, he could have been younger. Once again, numbers, I'm the worst. 29. Thank you, Easton.
God, he did all that before he was 29 years old.
Oh yeah. So he was young, man. He was a young guy, and here are the guys around him who some of them had been around them forever. Roy Acuff, who got into the business when he was 18, was, a mentor at that point already. It's crazy to think about Roy Acuff was already a mentor by the time Hank Williams Sr. broke in. And he used to say to him all the time, you have $1 million voice and a 10-cent brain. And there's a sort of a sad story. Everybody knew Hank was having problems, bad. And that's why he would get kicked off the Opry, and he still hadn't been reinstated, and people talk about it a lot. He was in a rough spot, and Minnie Pearl had gone to visit him, and she started singing his song, I Saw the Light. And he said, don't sing that one. And she goes, what do you mean don't sing that one? And he goes, there's no light left for me, Minnie.
Damn.
And then he dies. Fuck, you can't write that,
God bless. Why is it that you almost feel like there's always going to be a tragic ending to like greatness? And you know what's weird? I hate to say this, but it's almost better for your legend.
And that's the worst part about it, man.
Can you imagine seeing Jimi Hendrix selling comfortable beds?
Yeah. Well, like I always tell people,
what's the bed commercial?
Yeah. I always tell folks, me and Weldon have arguments over this. I do not want to get on a plane. I've been on a plane once. That was enough for me. And he says, why? And I tell him, I go, Patsy Cline, Hawkshaw Hawkins, Jim Reeves, Jim Croce. These are all
Otis
people.
Redding, thank you.
Yeah. All these people, You get in the plane, you crash, you die. And he goes, well, it's the safest way to travel. I go, yeah, it's the safest way to travel until you crash. And then it's not survivable in most cases.
Okay, thank you. So people always tell me this. They go, well, statistically, it's safer to fly than it is to drive a car. And I go, well, statistically, it's safer to get in a car wreck than it is a plane wreck.
Yeah, and that's so like I get where they're coming from. That like and then they say, oh well, those are all private airliners. These are commercial, dude. The day the music died, a man my size squeezed into a plane with 3 other people, and the plane went down. And if you think for a second, in my mind, I don't think I'm the reason that plane's going down. So now, I have a whole theory about this. No, you're laughing, but I'm so serious.
Wait, is your theory that weight brings the plane down? Because I agree with you.
But this is totally serious. The story of the day the music died.
Right.
Richie Valens, Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, J.P. Richardson, all, get onto a plane they probably shouldn't have gotten on. Waylon Jennings avoids getting on the plane. Weird precursor to this. The last encounter Waylon had with Buddy Holly was because the bus had broken down. And the story is Buddy Holly had said, I hope you freeze to death on that bus, and Waylon had said, well, I hope your plane crashes. So the Big Bopper, Richie Valens, Buddy Holly, they get on the plane. They all jumped. That's why all the bodies were scattered in the field.
Oh, I'd never heard that.
And then they, like the Big Bopper's clothes were taken off. I 100% think that it was a weight thing, that they knew that they were needing to lose weight. And I think what happened is that the Bopper selflessly said, I'm going to take off my clothes. And then he said, fellas, I'm going to jump to save you. And then they weren't able to save it. And then I think it was Buddy that next. And then I think it was last. It was Valens.
Holy shit.
So as a big person, dude, I'm not getting on a damn plane.
You know what plane I ain't getting on? Boeing.
Oh my God! Well, we might. Hey, if you continue with this, we might both end up murdered tomorrow morning.
Yeah, no
so
shit.
We better tread lightly,
bro. They sent one of the guys that's up there right now. Butch is from Nashville.
Oh shit! Here we go.
I think he lives in Houston, but he's from Nashville. But hey, go for 8 days, and then you can't come back till 2025. Sorry, guys. What the hell are they doing at Boeing?
Dude, this is one of millions of things that happen with this company. Dude, that's what I'm saying. I'm not doing it. And I told Weldon, too.
Do you mean Doris have flown off of planes recently?
Yeah. And I told Weldon, I said, look, it's a comfort thing for me as much as everyone else on the plane. Nobody wants to sit next to the big guy. I mean, that's just the reality. And, you need a seatbelt extender. That's an embarrassing thing. Nope. Not for me.
Oh, you can't worry about all that.
No, but
you're being too selfish to think that you're the reason a jet would go down.
No, I know that. I'm just saying I want people to be comfortable. But yeah, in that situation, those little the little puddle jumpers. Oh no, never.
Yeah, but those planes were different back then.
Yeah, and that's true too.
I mean, Otis wasn't supposed to be flying.
Yeah,
Skinner was in a nicer plane, I think.
Yeah. Well, then there was always the anomalies of guys that survive it. Willie, Reba, they survived them.
Reba wasn't in the plane.
Oh, that's right. It was her band. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
wait, Willie survived a plane crash?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, I think I can't remember if Willie was flying or if he was just in it.
Yeah, it was Reba's band that was flying.
Yeah, and I knew when I said it. But I think I don't remember if Willie was flying or if he was just in the plane. But yeah, crash landed. And then he gets out and starts doing media, and he's like, that's the best landing I've ever had. I'm still alive.
Have you ever seen the kid that survived 2 plane crashes?
No.
What was it? His dad died in one of them.
Oh,
yeah, there's a kid that survived 2 plane crashes. So anyway, I'm glad that we've gone in for a Boeing. No, Elon's got to go up there and save their asses.
I know. Dude, this is such a weird... we're in such a weird time where, really, really rich people can do side quests that they can choose if they want to be a supervillain or if they want to be a hero. Like, Elon is a suit away from becoming Batman. Like, that's the world that we live in. Like, Elon is a suit away from becoming Batman.
Did you see where Al Jazeera did a documentary on Boeing one time, and they went around with a hidden camera and asked people, would you fly on the jet? And every employee said no, except for one who said yes, but then he said, but I also have a death wish.
Jesus. Yeah, that's the guy you want building your plane, right?
They were using Windex on the doors
Oh, man.
instead of like lubricant.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that. Oh.
Sorry. And that's what, no, you, let me imagine, you go to a corporation like the banks in 2008, Boeing with all these airline crashes and doors flying off, and they go in front of, sorry.
Dude, and that's why I believe, and once again, I'm not Boeing, but I have a small, humble following. I think it's important to be transparent with your audience, or in their case, your customers. I think it's important to be as true to yourself and as true to them as possible. Don't go out of your way to ruffle feathers. Be a good person because it's the right thing to do. And I think, too, like, it's okay if people have different opinions. That's something I'm so glad that I'm getting better at realizing. I wish my father was still alive for me to, maybe reconcile some of our issues. But I think it took him, passing away for me to get to that point. And I mean, if it wasn't for him passing away, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Because I never would have been able to, make that happen. So.
One of the things I like about talking about music is it's such an escape from all this bullshit.
Oh, 100%. And it's great, man. Like, you can talk about music in any era, and I mean, something that I wish happened less, and I'm hoping with all these folks doing these albums, it does. When someone says, I listen to all genres except country, that bums me out. Because I think it's not that they don't like country, they just don't like what they perceive country to be.
Yeah.
And there's so many great, man, listen to Tom T. Hall. Like.
Well, I think those lines are being blurred nowadays. I really do.
I do. And I really do hope.
I think someone can hear a Zach Bryan and go, okay, maybe country, maybe I should give it a shot. Yeah. There might be someone that likes rock out there and they hear Hardy. He's dipping his toes into rock in a lot of ways. And so say, hey, maybe there is some crossover stuff I can find that I like. I think there's always avenues to find it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the case of those guys, I hope that everybody finds the success that they deserve.
Yeah.
And speaking on that, like, I once again, I do have to reiterate, and he'll kick my ass later, but, like, Dylan Weldon is a beacon for me, and like, our friendship is interesting to folks because they don't get it. Like, why is this guy, talking to this guy? There's a value in just being cool.
Yeah,
and we try real hard to just be.
Well, Dillon is special because Dillon has figured out a way to create interesting content that satisfy this short attention span. But when you talk to Dillon and you spend more time with him like I have, man, for every 90 seconds he gives you, he can give you 10 minutes. Yeah. He knows it from top to bottom. And there's an authenticity with him it's not just that, here's what I researched, here's this 90-second clip. He loves all these stories. And he loves the artist. He loves the history. And he's so good at how he does it that I'm so grateful for him for what he does.
And that's, I mean, we've talked about it a million times, but that's where our friendship comes from. It comes from that passion.
Yeah.
That I say all the time, in any other world, he and I would be bitter enemies. We'd hate each other because we're competitors. But we're not. We're friends.
Yeah. Another person I have to say is Nikki. Yeah. Having you and Nikki and Dillan Weldon on the podcast has been so much fun for me because I'm a consumer of y'all's product. Nikki is someone who's like really showing me, hey, maybe get your head out of your ass and from the past and enjoy some of this new stuff. So I've kind of, because I think I told her when I met her, I like what I like, and I just kind of get comfortable with it. I have Spotify playlists that just regurgitate the same stuff, and I'm happy with that. But when you find like someone's page like Nikki, you're like, wow, this is like really valuable content. Because she's exposing me. Like, I've listened to Taylor Honeycutt more since she came on. Listen to Nolene Hoffman. I think her and Zach did a great song together. Yeah. You and Nikki are the reason I know who the Reeves brothers are. And what a throwback. They're terrific.
Yeah. We're, first off, thank you for those kind words. We all appreciate that. To us, I said when I started, I could make my platform about me or I could make it about other people. And I chose to make it about other people. Yeah. And I wish, man, every time I do a video about a new artist or someone who isn't, at a certain level, the video becomes an absolute dud. And those people appreciate that I made the video. They're just happy I'm talking about them. But I feel like I'm doing them a disservice by, doing it. I do. I feel guilty. Like, here, I made this video about you and like, it wasn't received as well as it should have been received. And like, then I feel bad. I feel like, man, I don't want to,
You got to get outside your head on that one.
Oh, I know. They talk to me about it. They and all the artists that all the young artists that I've ever made videos about or promoted in any way, like, they all come to me and they say, Dillon, thank you so much for what you do. Like, we appreciate it. And I just say, I didn't do anything. You guys are the act. Y'all are the talent. I'm just here.
For new talent, any view helps. Yeah. Any exposure helps. Yeah. And for legacy acts, anyone that's keeping their memory alive is great. So you do great on both sides.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that we try. We try to make sure that we're carrying on those stories the way that they were told originally. I mean, sometimes if you don't have the exact notes, or transcript in front of you, naturally, things can be misconstrued. But I think we try to do the best job that we can do.
Let me ask you, what is your advice to content creators on how to, find your lane and build yourself as a content creator?
That's a great question. I think that the best thing you can do is find what you're passionate about, find the thing that you love, and don't let anybody take that love away from you. I'll give you an example. I left my job back home because I supported the passions of the people around me, and it was pretty obvious that my passions were a joke to those individuals. Mm-hmm. If you're in a situation where you feel like you can't succeed because the people around you aren't elevating what you love and what makes you happy, you need to find new people, and that's what I tried to do.
Yeah.
Find what you like, find what you're interested in, and do that to the best of your ability. Be better today than you were yesterday. Do the research, hone in your skills, and if you make it, you make it, and if you don't, you tried real damn hard.
Yeah. Man, it's hard to find your tribe, but it's important. That's one of the things I have to say about you and Dylan Weldon and Nikki in Nashville. When I started doing this podcast, I had a list of people I hope to speak to. People like Jim McBride and Roger Murrah and Tony Brown. Over the course of the last year, I've, being on social media now, I start to see reels, and I find out that there's people like y'all that are really keeping the memory alive, really creating excellent content, exposing people to new music and old music they might not have heard. Hell, you spent half the time today telling me songs I didn't even know about that I can't wait to go listen to. But it's so important. I never anticipated discovering that there's going to be content creators who can be a huge, valuable asset to your life and your musical taste, but I found it with all of y'all.
We just share what we like, and we're all good at having different tastes. Like, look, man, if it's obscure, I probably love it. There's a lot of obscure songs, and I'm not a curator. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a curator, but I have playlists on Spotify, on Apple Music, YouTube Music as well. Like, so if you're interested in sort of the stories that I tell, if you're interested in the things that I talk about and the songs and the people, I have a playlist. It's my personal playlist that I just put out there for the public. It's there.
You're a little bit of a curator. What I saw you do on TikTok the other night was definitely curation, because I guarantee you half the people that were in there had not heard 80% of the songs. So you and your audience help expose people to stuff. Look, it's always about exposing people to new music. Sometimes it's about saying, hey, go back and check out this.
Yeah.
Go check out this hit that you might not have heard before.
Yeah, and I mean, we try.
Like now I'm going to leave here and listen to Psycho.
And, you know, I'm truthfully amazed you never heard that one.
Yeah, I don't know that I have. Maybe I have.
There's a line of songs that, like, me and Dylan Weldon had talked about. And I'm not saying we were why these songs blew up or anything like that, but, like, we've talked about these songs, and, like, a year later, they blow up. Like Chicken in Black for Gary Gentry. Man, that made us so happy, because Weldon is good friends with Mr. Gary. I have yet to meet him, but I'm really excited for the day I get to. And, like, the way that he credits Weldon so much, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he'll get on Facebook and he'll write you pages about why Weldon is the greatest person in the world, and Weldon is the best way that I can describe my friendship with Weldon is, if you know anything about the relationship Buck Owens had with his guitarist Don Rich, that's how I look at Weldon. Weldon's like my hero. You know, he's my friend. He's my buddy. We mentor each other. We work with each other. We're so lucky to have that friendship.
All right, so before we get out of here, I'll ask you, who is your favorite country artist of all time?
It's hard. It's hard to narrow it down to just one. I always tell people Tom T. Hall. And Tom T's great, man. But for every Tom T. Hall, there's George Jones, there's Merle Haggard, there's Guy Clark. And then there's guys that, like, nobody's ever heard of, like Jim Ringer, you know, who just had a song recorded by Benjamin Todd. Benjamin Todd recorded the Hubbardville Store, which is a Jim Ringer song. So I'll say Tom T. Hall, because that's sort of the person who I've tried to elevate the most.
Okay. Top 5 Tom T. Hall songs of all time.
Oh, see, that's difficult too, because I've heard a lot of the ones that nobody's heard.
But it's a good chance to expose people.
No, these are like demos that nobody has. That's why no one's heard them. I Flew Over Our House Last Night is a beautiful song. Keith Whitley had a cut of it. One of Keith Whitley's last demos was that song. Nashville is a Groovy Little Town. That one's just on YouTube. Man, it's hard to just list them off like that. There's the one about Alice. Oh man, I can't remember the name, but it's the story's about a lady who's drunk, or she's a drunkard, and her husband is basically telling her, like, hey, don't burn down the house with your ashes. Like, what are you doing? You know, she burns dinner, but it's okay because she can't remember. Pay no attention to Alice.
Pay no attention
to Alice. And then, yeah, I'll throw in some of the songs that are really just songs I do know people like. So that's how I got to Memphis is up there.
Heck yeah.
And then I'll throw one that I think a lot of people haven't heard, and that's, oh man, see, it's hard for me with the titles and everything, because Tom T had some really, like, long titles. There's the song is something about the Great Onion Championship or something, and the story is he and Joe Eli were at the Stubbs barbecue joint in Texas, and they didn't have pull cues. Joe Eli's wife hid the pull cues, so they played with an onion, and that's how that happened. And yeah, super, super unique song that I love the storytelling elements. I love the vocals, just everything that they do in that song.
The Great East Broadway Onion Championship of 1978?
Yes.
Is that the damn song title?
Yes.
My God.
See, so now you understand why I'm saying
You're forgiven for not knowing that.
Yeah, so Tom T had some song titles that were
Really long.
yeah.
Well, I love putting people on the spot like that because saying one artist is such a crappy question. But I just wondered who yours was because you have such a vast knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, listen, brother, we're going to get out of here and go check out the Johnny Cash Museum
For sure.
in Bon Aqua.
Yeah, the Johnny Cash Hideaway Farm in Bon Aqua. It's really just called the Hideaway Farm in Bon Aqua. It's the Storytellers Museum and Hideaway Farm in Bon Aqua, Tennessee. It's the home of the One Piece at a Time car.
All right. Well, dude, I got to tell you, man, getting to know you, hanging out with you recently, learning more about you, been a lot of fun for me, and look forward to having you back on. But I'm really honored to have you on today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Bye, y'all.